Hey guys, John here. Today I'm going to teach you how to make a banjo type of sound, and this video is more so to show you the technique behind how this works. So without further ado, this is what this sounds like. Alright, I think you get the idea. So let's turn off these drums here first, and with this patch I mapped a macro to make the banjo have different types of tones depending on the song. So this macro sounds like this. Now this idea basically came a long time ago, and I kind of mistakenly fell into it. I was creating a bell sound, and then by FMing a bell sound with another bell sound, you kind of get the harmonic content of what a banjo kind of sounds like. So with that being said, let's turn off these oscillators here, and let's pan this first one into the center. And it sounds like a bell, and it's very strange. So what's happening here? Let's turn off our reverb, our distortion, our EQ, and our delay, and also our external reverb as well. So I started off with a sine wave, and I went to edit here, and you can see these harmonic content here, these little harmonics that I added kind of just randomly. It's not very thought out as far as like harmonic 20, it's going to be 5 dB. It's not like that. I kind of just kept keying them in until it sounded metallic-y, because that's the whole idea behind a bell, is that you want to have a metallic type of sound, and metallic sounds are not necessarily in a very perfect harmonic content. So by adding kind of random harmonics at different spots, you kind of can simulate that metallic sound. So with that being said, once you have something similar like that, then you can kind of start to use that to make this banjo. So once I made that waveform, I right-clicked, I copied this, and then pasted this to both oscillators here. So when we turn these on, the first one's going to be up 2 octaves, the second one up 2 octaves, panned left and right, and then the third one's going to be up 1 octave, and then in the center here. None of these have any voices, so they're just one voice. Now really what happens is when we FM this one here, the lower pitched waveform, and we FM those to 2 and 1. So down here you can see FM to FM from 3 and then FM from 3 as well. So this third oscillator is FMing 1 and 2 by a little bit. And this macro here is controlling how much of that FM is going to be present. So as we turn this knob here, we can see it moving on this dial here. So that's basically how that tone is controlled. So we enter the value of 0.5, how this patch comes default, and it comes out like that. We also want to keep the same bell type of envelope, so a pretty quick attack, and then it's supposed to fade out pretty quick, and you can maybe have a little bit of releases I have here to kind of let the strings kind of fade out a little bit to have that simulation. So without further ado, let's look at the effects here. Before we go, actually, look, the filter, I don't know if I talked about that, it's going to be 12 dB, and this high end is just going to be cut a little bit. It's not too thought out as well. And one thing too is the key tracking. So as I hit different notes, we see the filter changing, and it's going to be to the left because the higher notes we hit, we kind of want to cut a little bit more of that harmonic content on the top end, because if you don't, it's going to sound very annoying. So if I had this at the center, it's going to have too much top end. So we turn this all the way to the left, and it kind of tames it down just a little bit. So moving on, this effects here, we're first going to start off with a delay at 1/8 and a mid ping pong. The feedback is going to be 10.9, the mix is going to be 4.67, the cutoff is going to be 49.15, and then the spread is going to be 0.34. Because for the delays, we always want to cut off that top end as well. Next up for our EQ, this is mainly just cutting a little bit of low end off here at about 37 hertz, give or take. You can cut off a little bit more if you want, it's totally up to you. Next up is going to be the distortion with soft clip, and the drive is going to be at 9.7, and then the mix that kind of brought down to 0.25. Now this soft clip is more so to add more harmonic content, a little bit more character to the sound itself, and I didn't use any of the post filter here. Next up is going to be a little reverb. Now this is kind of just a little bit of reverb here. As you can see, the mix value is quite low at 14.57%, give or take. Really, the reverb I like to use is externally, so if we turn that on, it's going to have a little bit better sound, I personally feel. So that's basically the nutshell in this patch. It's not necessarily to show you how to recreate this patch, but if you do want it, it's available for free download in the video description below. This is more so to show you the thought process behind creating this type of sound, is making a bell sound and then FMing it by the same waveform, but an octave lower. And depending on how much FM you have, it's going to kind of give that characteristic of a type of banjo. Very strange how that works, but it does. So with all that being said, all these effects in here, we have our reverb on. Let's turn on our drums as well, and let's listen to the final product of this banjo. Well, I'll be damned.